JB here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Tuesday, October 7, 9:15 on this fine morning. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P futures flipped into the green. They're actually red overnight. And then about 4:30 was the bottom. SPY was under 670, well, 670.50. And then we've been melting higher ever since. Just tapped 673 on the SPY here. So nothing crazy. 0.2%. NASDAQ's up 0.2%. Uh, yeah, all that's amongst all this crazy headlines and joking aside, there's really not much this week. Tomorrow we get the Fed minutes. The government shutdown headlines continue to just come out, right? And now first it's a week, now 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Who knows how long this will be? I'm sure it'll get resolved in the next week or two. That would be my guesstimate. And then earnings season. So a week from today kicks off the earnings season. The banks typically, I don't know why, typically earnings season starts on a Friday, but next Tuesday, I forget, I don't know if it's Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan probably. But outside of that, it's the great circle jerk, right? Yesterday was AMD, OpenAI. This morning you have IBM and Anthropic. Their what's the name of their bot? Claude, right? So partnership with IBM, and it just seems like every day there's new news, right? And then this morning too, Dell raising their guidance. Dell's one of those frustrating stories for me, right? Not frustrating stories. I mean, some nice coin on the upside, not some nice coin sometimes. But it's like that name is going to just continue to head higher, and it's been taking its time, and I've missed the last part of the run, and it's not even. I think it was April highs that hit 160, but it's billions and billions and billions of dollars of backlog. It's always had that. Nvidia, this Jensen talks highly of Dell, their partnerships. Dell's been front and center with the new administration, Michael Dell. So it's like one of those names. It's like tough to get the calls because like at some point maybe next 6 months it's $200, but it's trying to trade it, right? Because it could be up 6-7% today, and it can give back those gains slowly over the next 7 days and just destroy the premium. So not going to trade Dell. But anyway, rants for other days. But what's the next catalyst, right? Or the next news event or headline? And like to me, it's like some of these names, this pressure gets added. Like if you're not part of this great circle jerk, it's like you're going to get left behind. To me, it's like Apple's like the last shoe to drop. I won't say the last shoe to drop. I'm like, there's got to be some news on Apple at some point in the next month or two. So I'll talk more about that in a second. But I'm looking at Apple. I'm like, does it rally 10% on some crazy news? Like I was looking at the November 300 strikes. I'm like, is that a way to trade Apple on some crazy headline that's going to come out in regards to a partnership? So rants for other days, but things I'll be looking at over the next couple of days, because you have to think this, the circle jerk is just going to continue until there's no more jerks in the circle to be jerked, right? I mean, pardon my French or what have you. That's how I kind of see it. All right. So overall market SPY 672 and change was the upper Bollinger Band. We're right at that level right now. So that's kind of like the resistance, the trading range, 660.06 on the SPY on the downside. I put on a watch list. I mean, I don't know if I'll be getting hedge puts. Typically, when I'm in more of a cautious stance, I'm more open to it. But 666, that'll be kind of the line in sand. If somehow sellers come out of the closets today and push the market for no reason, that'll be a spot I'll be looking for some hedge puts. All right, so that's kind of overall market. Also of note, small caps, right? High closed at all-time highs yesterday. It's second closing high over the last 4 years, right? It's the second, like insane to think of that. Small caps haven't been at all-time highs in 4 years. So you can make cases for the market going on this epic rally, and the S&P and NASDAQ at all-time highs for all this time. Well, I think it's like 26 all-time highs for the S&P this year so far. But then you have small caps. So I've been saying this for a while, like small caps, you have to think at some point maybe they take the baton and then they can be the next leg for the markets. All right, so that's overall market. So quick on some individual names. First, I'll talk about SERV Robotics. Announced their 1,000th deployment of their robotic delivery, their delivery robot. And that's their forecast to have 2,000 robots by the end of the year. So the fact that they announced 1,000 yesterday and said they were on track to have 2,000 by the end of the year, I mean, to me, that's like uber bullish. The 25% short interest, I think most of those shorts are expecting the company not to execute, right? Because what happens is once the hard part is scaling out, right? Getting those robots, onto the streets, the pavement, the sidewalk, whatever you want to call it, and generating revenue, right? So the hard part is getting those robots out there, because once they do, I'm not saying there's no costs associated with it, because there's maintenance costs and charging costs, and all that other stuff. But it's like now you got the hard part out of the way, and now it's just monetizing that individual robot, right? And how long the duration, how long they last, how much revenue they can bring in on a daily, weekly, month. What's the time frame of their survival? Like how long? So there's a lot of little things to look at. But to me as a whole, if you're a bear, the bear case is that this never happens, right? There's never 1,000 robots. There's never 2,000. They don't scale out. They don't. There's malfunction. There's no part of the like all these things start to fall apart. And to me, it's like at the later stages of this. So I mean, I look at it. I think it's headed at $18, and then once it gets there, maybe some FOMO. And you think FOMO, considering the stock was under $10 only a month ago, I think that happens, and people start looking at it and say, "Hey, well, is this like getting Uber before it really started to take off?" And that's when the FOMO kicks in. And then maybe it's 20, 25, 30. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So I was able to lock the October strikes in. I was thinking of holding them, but the longer you wait, obviously the premiums, the expiration is getting closer. So I went out, got some Novembers, and I closed some more of the January 20s. I added the higher January 30 strikes just because if there is FOMO, the premiums are going to go nuts. So really love SERV. I can go on a rant on that one for a while, but I won't. And then JOBY, right? So JOBY finally got well, took the profits on the last of my 20 strikes. I didn't have many left, so I was just kind of like holding on those. Uh, Kind of it almost prevented me from trying to chase some of the pops and the dips that it had. And then I you start looking at the trend lines, and unfortunately I haven't updated these support resistant trend lines, but it's back in that trading channel. So to me, I think similar to SERV, it's going to get some FOMO. As reports, Tesla has a big announcement today. It's going to be something on the EVTO, the electron, the excuse me, the vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Is it something related to that? If that's the case, you saw Archer rallying yesterday. So I don't know. To me, I don't think it needs that for it to rally into the mid to high 20s. So I went out and got some. I was looking. It's tough, right? So JOBY when it was $12 or $13, heck of a lot easier to find some decent risk reward strikes. Now that it's up here at $19, you have to start thinking, okay, is it possible it hits the $30, right? So a little more expensive to try and find some decent risk reward strikes to trade for that. So in lieu of doing that, I just went out to the November strikes, and then maybe breaks over 20 today. I'll look for some more strikes to play for upside, lock some of those Novembers in. That's JOBY. And then other names, Reddit churning around 204 for most of the morning into the noon hour. And I'm like, if the Bears had a chance to push Reddit back into under the 200s and hold it there, that was the opportunity. I was looking at the strikes. I'm like, 240s look interesting on a risk reward basis, considering the premiums are usually a heck of a lot more elevated than they were yesterday. So I went and got the 240s. Sure enough, within an hour, it goes from 205 to 211. I took some off close to 100% to cover costs and held the rest. And then sells off into the afternoon, closes at 203 and change. Still like the upside here. So I'll continue to hold those spec lottos. If it gets over 211 today, I might look for some more strikes to play for upside. It's funny that, OpenAI had their developer conference. They announced 800 million active users. And I'm like, how is that not uber bullish Reddit, right? I mean, the treasure trove of information and data that they have, like, I mean, it's unique. And to me, so I'm not going to go on a rant on Reddit, but I'll continue to look for opportunities on that one, which brings me to AppLovin, right? And this is a name, I remember watching it. I was trading Unity a lot. Maybe it was a year ago. And app always used to come up when you look at Unity because it's kind of like in the software app space, right? So to me, I didn't really ever knew what AppLovin did, right? But then it was like $60 and $70, and then it went on this epic rally. And then you start digging into it. I'm like, oh, it does like, if you have kids, it's the little ads that come up most times when we're doing some game that, you click the button that says, do you want the ads removed? And if you don't, you have to watch the ads for 5 seconds. So I think that's some of their ecosystem. And quite honestly, I haven't done much of a deep dive into AppLovin. I just know it's like one of those names. It's I'm using a great circle jerk in regards to what's going on with AI and CapEx, but similar with these short pieces, right? They did it on Tesla, they did it on Roblox, they did it on a Carvana, and they did it on AppLovin. And everybody, all these short folks came out with these bear piece on AppLovin. They talked about tailoring some of these ads to teenage and adolescent folks, and it really was for kids who were 7 years old, apps clicking links that were mature rated content. So there were, they brought up all these red flags. And so now it becomes like this name that, because people haven't, like myself, haven't done a deep dive, it's very easy to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So they've come out with all these short pieces. One, Hindenburg did, all these other folks did. And now it, went on this epic rally since the April lows. It was $200 all the way up to 750. And now, boom, Bloomberg comes out with report yesterday that the SEC is investigating for their data collection practices or the revenue in regards to that. I don't know the details because there's no SEC filing, right? Um, there's no news from the company, and it's just a report. And it's like crazy how this all works because this is me thinking that these funds who are short, they have all these contacts. They say, "Hey, Bloomberg, put out a report," and they create this pullback on the stock. And there's ways they do things, right? And one of them is that the FOIA request, right? The Freedom of Information Act that allows them to get these pieces of information that they're able to. I forget what the name of the site is. I think it's called Probe Reporter, right? They actually can find out what companies are possibly under SEC investigation before it hits the tape, before it hits either the filing or a news from the company. So it's funny how the shorts do that. So I think that's some of it. And someone's reached out to Bloomberg to make sure they put out this piece. And then the other thing is they flood the SEC with these whistleblower complaints, right? So it's almost like they create this environment for the stock to tank, even if there's no, credibility to the reports. It's just, and it's the reason why you despise the shorts. The same thing that happened with Tesla, and they came within a stone's throw of getting Tesla to be like, not exist, to be bankrupt, right? Not for that story never to exist because of creating the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the debt being at this level that unsustainable for Tesla, and they would go bankrupt, right? So that's what drives me nuts with Apple Oven. So I was hoping if we got to opens at 570, I might look for some spec lotto calls, but the premiums are expensive, the spreads are wide, so even to try and get in and out might be tough. But don't be surprised if I try and get some lotto calls. Uh, so that's Apple Oven. So, I don't hate the shorts, right? To me, like it's good. Price discovery is important, right? You need to have both sides of the story. But to me, where it crosses the line is when it borderlines on somewhat manipulation, right? And typically manipulation is what happens to a stock that you're in that you don't like, right? So when it goes down, you say, oh, it's manipulated, right? So I hate to use that term manipulated. To me, though, I just hate when they use these shenanigans that unwarranted to destroy a stock. If you're long Apple Oven and you see a move down on this just because of this game that they're playing, that drives me nuts. All right. So that's Apple Oven. Just quick on others because the market opens in a minute here. Duolingo was all the way up at 3:30 into the afternoon. Last 15-minute pullback. Frustrating there. Premium is still holding up, so good sign there. I'll continue to hold those. Still eyeing TKO for some calls. And then Cardlytics, nice 8% day yesterday. So maybe it's the start of its breakout, of its bull flag. If it does, $5 comes. And that's it. And then Apple. Don't be surprised I add some FOMO crazy calls on Apple, some spec lottos, just because you see the environment we're in now. I think it would just need it's like kindling, and it just needs a spark on the Apple kindling, and then next thing you know, I mean, $300. Call me crazy. I would think it would be crazy a couple months ago, but now you see what's going on with some of these names, and it's not that crazy. All right, let's have a great day. I'll be back. Rock and roll.